Roll.
Alderman Troop, Alderwoman Flowers, Alderman Bosley, Alderman Moore, Alderwoman Griffin, Alderwoman Triplett, Alderwoman Young, Alderman Conway, Alderman Ortman, Alderman Vollmer, Alderman Villa, Alderman Arnowitz, Alderman Wessels, Alderwoman Howard, Alderwoman Florida, Alderwoman Behringer, Alderman Rhodey, Alderman Kennedy, Alderwoman Davis, Alderman Schmid, Alderman French, Alderman Boyd, Alderman Vaccaro, Alderman Ogilvie, Alderman Cone, Alderman Williamson, Alderman Carter, Alderwoman Cruzen, President Reed.
Here.
Alderwoman Flowers, Alderwoman Young, Alderman Conway, Alderman Vollmer, Alderman Villa, Alderman Wessels, Alderman Rhodey, Alderwoman Davis, Alderman Williamson, Alderman Carter, Alderwoman Cruzen, 20 present.
Quorum being present, I'll ask everyone in the chambers and the galleries who's able to stand to please rise for prayer. Giving all honor to God, Almighty God, source of all authority, we humbly ask guidance in our deliberations and wisdom in our conclusions. Amen. We have with us today the youth and the YMCA Youth and Government body, and we had some help today bringing this meeting to order by Mayor Donnie Duffy from the Crondelet YMCA. He's the mayor of the Youth and Government, and Briella Rayner from the Mount Santo YMCA. She's the president of the Board of Aldermen, and they helped bring us to order today. Let's give them a round of applause, and the Youth and Government. Along with the director, I don't know if the director's there, if you can stand and so that we can recognize you for the Youth and Government. Thank you for all that you do with these kids. I really appreciate you getting them involved in the process early on. Let's give her a round of applause before we can. Suspending with our regular order of business, take by courtesy resolution calendar. I move for adoption of courtesy resolution calendar. I entertain a second on that motion. Seconded by the Alderman from the 22nd. Alderwoman from the 16th, would you like to approach the dais?
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I would like to offer a resolution today for Marine Week, which will take place next week here in St. Louis. And if you've seen the billboards, the buses, the advertising on television, it's going to be very exciting. And so all eyes are on the city of St. Louis, which I am very glad to be the one to give the resolution today to the Marines. I'm not going to go ahead and read the resolution, but I am going to go ahead and introduce Captain Jeremy Bucher and Captain Kate Vanderbosch to go ahead and tell us a little bit about Marine Week for us.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As she said, I'm Captain Kate Vanderbosch. We are very excited about Marine Week. It is our opportunity to show the city of St. Louis and all of the wonderful patriots here exactly who their Marine Corps is and what it is that we bring to this nation. We are so grateful because the city here has been the most gracious hosts we've received thus far. You guys have welcomed us with open arms, and I cannot thank you enough. And I'd like to take this opportunity to give one more special thank you to Ms. Ann Chance in the mayor's office, who has been instrumental in helping us organize Marine Week this year. I hope to see you all out there. it's going to be a great success. And again, thank you for all of your support, not just of the Marine Corps, but of all of the armed services.
The ceremonies begin Monday over at Soldiers Memorial, so for all the aldermen who can make it, look forward to seeing you.
Alderman from the 18th, I'd like to approach the dais. Resolution 122.
Yes, she's right here. Come right on up, stand. Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. We have a resolution here today to honor Miss Pearline Harris, who's worked for the city for over 45 years. Doesn't she look good for that amount of time for this city? Over those years, she has received a number of honors and recognitions, and I'd just like to read a little bit of the resolution that points out all of her accomplishments over those 45 years with the city of St. Louis. Whereas we have been apprised that after 45 years and 6 months of dedicated service with the city of St. Louis, Mrs. Pearline Harris retired from the building division on May 31st, 2011. And whereas Ms. Pearline Harris attended both public, elementary, and high school in St. Louis, graduating from Vashon High School in 1965. Mrs. Harris attended community college at Forest Park in 72 and 84. And whereas Mrs. Harris began her career with the city of St. Louis as a hospital attendant at Homer Phillips Hospital in 1965. She worked as a Clerk 1 in the City Hall Assessor's Office, as a community program aide for the lead poison program at Wohl Health Center, and as a sanitation inspector with the Health Division. Mrs. Harris became a Building Inspector 1 in 1983 and a Building Inspector 2 in 1992. She has received a nomination under the Employee Recognition Program, the highest honor a public servant can receive from a member of the community in June 2000. She received the Heads Up Award Job Performance and the Raymond Daly Excellence Award and the Building Division's Employee of the Year for going above and beyond the call of duty in her job performance. And whereas Mrs. Harris received an Outstanding Customer Service Award in 2000 with the Building Division. She appeared on the City of St. Louis talk show in 2002, and Mrs. Harris received a recognition award for excellent job performance June 2001, July 2001, and August 2001, and December 1999. She is also an active member in the 18th Ward, and she is a member of the St. Alphonsus Rock, where she served as Eucharist minister, as well as served as a part of the Adopt a Student program. She is also a graduate of the Weed and Seed program for the Lewis Place neighborhood, and also served as its president of the Lewis Place neighborhood from 1987 and 1991. We therefore, because of all of this dedicated service, she's one of those hard workers in the 18th Ward. She shows up to every meeting before I get there and has plenty of things to say and ideas on how to improve our community. And she just doesn't talk it, she puts the actual legs and arms and energy to make it happen. Being a building inspector and having her in the 18th Ward had its benefits, because at times we needed to sick her on some people and she'd get them good on our behalf. Now therefore be resolved by the Board of Aldermen of the City of St. Louis that we pause in our deliberations to congratulate Mrs. Pearline Harris for over 45 years of service with the City of St. Louis, and we wish her peace and happiness in her retirement. And we direct the clerk of this board to spread a copy of this resolution across the minutes of these proceedings and further prepare a commemorative copy to the end that it may be presented to our honoree at a time and place deemed appropriate by its sponsor. It is my honor to honor Mrs. Pearline Harris and congratulate her, one, on her over 45 years of service to the city of St. Louis and finally retiring and enjoying the rest of these days. She also has many of her family members here to the left of the podium here. We also welcome them to the 18th Ward. And then her husband and her daughter are here as well, who I'm sure she will introduce. And we ask her to say a few words here at this time.
Well, good morning, and thank you for having me today. I am very honored to be here and to receive this resolution. However, I could not receive it on my own because I needed support to help me carry out these years. And I would like to thank my husband, Walter, for especially good support. And certainly my daughter with the extra energy that I needed and those different little easy words to help me go on throughout the day. But I would like to say most of all, as you know, I work the daycares and the nursing homes, the group homes. And it was indeed a challenge, but I would like to say also that it was also a learning experience and a well worth learning experience because the babies did not burn up, nor did the senior citizens burn up. And at this time, I would like to say thank you for the entire city of St. Louis. Thank you. And I do intend to enjoy this well-deserved retirement. Thank you.
Also want to Alderman from the 20th.
Members of the board, I would be remiss if I didn't say a few words, first of all, to thank the Alderman from the 18th for graciously sharing Ms. Perlina Harris with all of us over these number of years. I was introduced to Ms. Harris, I think, as she was inspecting some of our daycares. She was always very thorough. She is one of our faces of the great many terrific workers who work for the city of St. Louis who are unsung heroes. And I got to know her through the Weed and Seed program. She was a tireless champion for her neighborhood as well as for the entire city. And so she not only was very active within her neighborhood, she shared her skills throughout the city of St. Louis. So we're very proud of that, and good luck on your retirement.
All right, thank you. Any further comments? Any further comments? Also would like to just thank and congratulate Ms. Harris on your retirement. I know your husband and your kids will be glad to have you back. I know it's taken a lot out of you, and I want to thank your family for giving so much of you for all these years to the city of St. Louis. I think that the city of St. Louis has indeed been made better because you have passed this way. So thank you, Ms. Harris, and enjoy your retirement. Been moved and seconded that we adopt our courtesy resolution calendar. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. With that, we'll return to our regular order of business, introduction of honored guests. Any other introduction of honored guests? Alderman from the 20th.
Mr. President, members of the board, I too want to join my colleague from the 16th Ward in welcoming the Marines to St. Louis on their Marine Week. I want to introduce today as our special guests Aaron Chappell, who is a third-year law student at St. Louis University, who is interning at the Circuit Attorney's Office, as well as Rachel Smith from the Circuit Attorney's Office.
Alderman from the 16th.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. I have a very special guest with me today. He is why I am so tuned into the Marines Week, and that is my son, Brennan Behringer, who will be a senior at Vianney High School, who also wants a military Marine career. We've looked at the Citadel, we'll be looking at Mizzou, and we'll be looking at the Marines all next week. Thank you.
Alderman from the 7th, looks like you have a special guest.
I do. I would like to introduce Sir Smiles a Lot. He's here with Shannon Woodcock and Alice Davis of the Delta Dental Health Museum, which is going to be reopening down on Laclede's Landing. In the past, you may remember there was a dental museum down there for school-age children to go and attend, and so the museum is reopening, and Sir Smiles and Lot is here to provide you all with invitations to the event.
Excellent. Welcome, Sir Smiles. Alderman from the 23rd.
Yes, I'd like to welcome as my special guest Celeste Reeder from the Realtors.
Welcome, Celeste. Alderman from the 21st.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to have as my honored special guest today my state representative and friend, Jamila Nasheed, a fine 21st Ward resident. Thank you.
Alderman from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. I'd like to have also as my special guest State Representative Jamila Nasheed and Mr. Leroy Grant and the fire department. Thank you.
Alderman from the 22nd.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I have two special guests this morning, Ms. Rachel Smith with the Circuit Attorney's Office, who always blesses us with her presence, and a very special guest, Mr. Marcus Woods. Marcus Woods is my little brother with the Big Brothers and Sisters program. We've been together since 2008. He's an outstanding young man. He will be a senior at CBC. He has a good track record for sports, and he's a good academic student.
Any further introductions? Any further introductions? Also, I'd like to introduce as my special guest Percy Green III. Percy, thanks for coming to join us today from Fire. Alderman from the 10th, I'd like to wrap us up.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. As we gather here on the 17th of June, which is Bunker Hill Day, we should take great pride in having the last remaining veteran from Bunker Hill, Mr. Fred Steffen.
Alderman from the 13th, you recognize on approval of the minutes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to approve the minutes of the May 26th meeting.
Moved by the Alderman from the 13th, seconded by the Alderman from the 25th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Report of city officials.
Report of city officials can be found in sections A and B of the agenda and have been placed in all aldermen's mailboxes.
We'll dispense with line item 7. Would anyone like to take any bills off of any of our formal calendars? Alderman from the 7th, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, I would like to remove Board Bills 34 and 35 from the third reading and formal calendar.
Please proceed with Board Bill number 34.
I would move for passage of Board Bill 34.
Madam Clerk, would you like to read the?
Board Bill 34, sponsored by Alderwoman Young, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing and directing the mayor to make application to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development to refinance the city's existing Section 108 loan pertaining to Downtown Convention Center Hotel with a new loan containing an emergency clause and a severability clause.
Alderman from the 7th, you'd like to make a motion for Board Bill 34.
I renew my motion.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 7th, seconded by the Alderman from the 22nd. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Troop. Aye. Alderwoman Flowers. Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Griffin. Alderwoman Triplett. Alderwoman Young.
Aye.
Alderman Conway. Alderman Ortman. Alderman Vollmer. Alderman Villa. Alderman Arnowitz. Alderman Wessels. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Florida. Alderwoman Behringer. Alderman Rhodey, Alderman Kennedy, Alderwoman Davis, Alderman Schmidt, Alderman French, Alderman Boyd, Alderman Vaccaro, Alderman Ogilvie, Alderman Cone, Alderman Williamson, Alderman Carter, Alderwoman Cruzen, President Reed,
Aye.
Alderman Rhodey, 29 aye votes.
I vote you sustain the motion. Alderwoman from the 7th.
Board Bill 35, sponsored by Alderwoman Young, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing and directing the mayor to make applications to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development to refinance the city's existing Section 108 loan pertaining to Darcy Webby Hope 6 revitalization plan with a new loan containing an emergency and a severability clause.
Alderwoman from the 7th, you recognize on third reading and final passage of Board Bill number 35.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, I move for final passage of Board Bill 35.
Moved by the Alderman from the 7th, seconded by the Alderman from the 22nd. It's been a request for previous roll by the Alderman from the 9th. Hearing no objection, motion carries.
That's the extent of third reading informal calendar.
Would anyone like to take any more bills off of any of our informal calendars? Would anyone like to take any more bills off any of our informal calendars? Dispense with line item 10, first reading of board bills.
Board Bill 95, sponsored by Alderwoman Flowers, an ordinance approving the petition to establish the North Broadway Cary Community Improvement District, establishing the North Broadway Cary Community Improvement District containing a severability clause. Board Bill 96, sponsored by Alderwoman Young, an ordinance authorizing the execution of an amendment to the redevelopment agreement by and between the city and Hadley Dean Building TIF, prescribing the form and details of said amendment, making certain findings with respect thereto, authorizing other related actions, and containing a severability clause. Board Bill 97, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis, an ordinance amending Ordinance 68194, authorizing the execution of amendment to the redevelopment agreement by and between the city and Council Towers Senior Apartments, prescribing the form and details of said amendment, making certain findings with respect thereto, authorizing other related actions, and containing a severability clause. Board Bill 98, sponsored by Alderwoman Young, an ordinance authorizing the execution of an amendment to the redevelopment agreement by and between the city and Glenwood Griffin, prescribing the form and details of said amendment to the redevelopment agreement, making certain findings with respect thereto, authorizing other related actions, and containing a severability clause. Board Bill 99, sponsored by Alderwoman Griffin, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing and directing the issuance and sale of one or more series of the St. Louis Water Revenue Refunding Bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $16 million, containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 100, sponsored by Alderwoman Griffin, an ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor and the comptroller to execute upon receipt of and in consideration the sum of $100,000, a quitclaim deed to Remise, Release, and Forever Quitclaim to Grace Hill Neighborhood Health Centers located in City Block 569, which property is known as 1717 Biddle, containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 101, sponsored by Alderwoman Young, an ordinance authorizing directing the mayor and the comptroller to execute upon receipt of and in consideration the sum of $100,000, a quitclaim deed to Remise, Release, and Forever Quitclaim to Grace Hill Neighborhood Health Center located in City Block 1335, which property is known as 2220 Limp, containing an emergency clause. That's the extent of our first readings.
Reference to committee.
To the Ways and Means Committee, Board Bills 95, 99, 100, and 101. To the Housing Committee, Board Bills 96, 97, and 98. That's the extent of reference to committees.
Second reading.
Following board bills were reported out of the Ways and Means Committee. Board Bill 1, Committee Substitute, sponsored by President Reed and Alderwoman Griffin. An ordinance making appropriations for payment of interest, expenses, and principal of the city's bonded indebtedness, establishing tax rate, and making appropriation for current year expenses for the fiscal year beginning July the 1st, 2011, and ending June the 30th, 2012, amounting in the aggregate to the sum of $937,781,936 appropriated from the revenue and special funds containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 76, sponsored by Alderwoman Young, Alderwoman Griffin, and Alderwoman Triplett, an ordinance approving the petition of owners of real property seeking the creation, extension, renewal, and establishment of the Downtown St. Louis Community Improvement District Incorporated, finding a public purpose for the creation, extension, renewal, and establishment of the Downtown St. Louis Improvement District, containing a severability clause and an emergency clause. Board Bill 58, Committee Substitute, sponsored by Alderman Moore, an ordinance authorizing amendment number 3 to the amended and restarted lease between the city and WAT Dignity Corporation, originally authorized by Ordinance 64565, which was adopted by the Board of Aldermen for property and improvements located at Whittier and Kennerly Streets. Board Bill 90, sponsored by Alderwoman Griffin, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment authorizing and directing the St. Louis Municipal Finance Corporation to issue and sell one or more series of the Corporation City Justice Center leasehold revenue refunding bonds, Series 2011, in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $70 million in order to refund or redeem all or a portion of the city's Justice Center leasehold revenue refunding bond, Series 2001A, all or a portion of the city's Justice Center leasehold refunding revenue bond, Series 2005, all or of a portion of its City Justice Center leasehold revenue refunding bonds, Series 2009. The following board bill was reported out of Legislation Committee. Board Bill 2, Committee Substitute, sponsored by Aldermen and Alderwomen: Young, Kennedy, President Reed, Troop, Flowers, Bosley, Moore, Triplett, Conway, Ortman, Villa, Arnowitz, Wessels, Howard, Florida, Behringer, Rhodey, Davis, Schmid, French, Boyd, Vaccaro, Ogilvie, Cone, Williamson, Carter, and Cruzen. An ordinance pertaining to ward boundaries for the city, repealing Ordinance 65377, establishing new ward boundaries. That's the extent of our second readings.
Dispense with line item 14, perfection consent calendar.
Board Bill 68, sponsored by President Reed and Alderwoman Young, an ordinance adopted pursuant to Section 105.483 of the Revised Statute of Missouri, reaffirming the provisions of Ordinance 62391, 66691, 67617, and 68409, establishing a policy for the disclosure of potential conflicts of interest and substantial interest for certain municipal officials and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 55, sponsored by Alderwoman Griffin, an ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission to change the zoning of property as indicated on the district map from F Neighborhood Commercial District to the D Multiple Family Dwelling District in City Block 61 for property at 2115 through 23 North 13th, 1302 through 12 Clinton, and 1221 Clinton, and from D Multiple Family Dwelling District and F Neighborhood Commercial District to D Multiple Family Dwelling District only in City Block 632 for property at 1301 through 19 Clinton Street and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 56, sponsored by Alderwoman Flowers, an ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission to change the zoning of property on as indicated on the district map from K Unrestricted District to J Industrial District in City Blocks 3458 for properties on Clarence, Cary, Pope, and Prescott, and so as to include described parcels of land in City Block 3458 and 3463 and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 8, Committee Substitute, sponsored by Aldermen and Alderwomen Boyd, Ortman, Wessels, Vaccaro, Cone, Howard, and Florida. An ordinance amending ordinance 65233, authorizing the designation of honorary street names within the city, the basis for recognition, requiring payment for the cost and installation of honorary signs, and requiring 60% of registered voters to indicate by petition the desire of an honorary renaming. Board Bill 39, committee substitute, sponsored by Alderman Moore, an ordinance authorizing and directing the Street Commission to take all necessary actions to honorarily designate the 4300 block of St. Ferdinand as Joseph Clark Sr. Way. Board Bill 40, committee substitute, sponsored by Alderman Moore, an ordinance authorizing and directing the Street Commissioner to take all necessary actions to honorarily designate the 3000 to 3100 block of Whittier as Chuck Berry Way. Board Bill 41, committee substitute, sponsored by Alderman Moore, an ordinance authorizing and directing the Street Commissioner to take all necessary actions to honorarily designate the 2900 block of Marcus Avenue as Reverend William G. Gillespie Way. Board Bill 82, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis, an ordinance directing the Director of Streets to temporarily close, barricade, or otherwise impede the flow of traffic on Brantner Place at the east curb line of Francis and containing an emergency clause. That's the extent of perfection consent.
Alderman from the 13th. There you go. Alderman from 13th, you recognize on the motion for the perfection and consent calendar.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, I move for perfection of the aforementioned bills on the consent calendar.
Moved by the Alderman from the 13th, seconded by the Alderman from the 8th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Board bills for perfection.
Board Bill 43, sponsored by Alderman French, an ordinance establishing speed bumps in at various locations in O'Fallon Park and containing an emergency clause.
Alderman from the 21st, you recognize on the perfection of Board Bill number 43.
Thank you. I move for the perfection of Board Bill 43.
Moved by the Alderman from the 21st. Entertain a second on that motion. Seconded by the Alderman from the 27th. Alderman from the 21st, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Board Bill 43 is a pretty simple act here. What we're doing here is for public safety reasons, adding some speed bumps in O'Fallon Park. We've done a lot of renovation in O'Fallon Park, making this a great place for families to come, and we're seeing that. A lot of families and a lot of people coming back to O'Fallon Park. One of the things we have done is added a new jogging and running trail in the park. And this park, in two spaces, goes out into the street. It crosses the street. And we think for public safety reasons, we need to add a couple of speed bumps around that to protect joggers and walkers, especially when they're walking and jogging, either with children or with headphones, may not be paying attention. We want to make sure we put that physical protection there for them when they cross out into the street. So with that, I renew my motion.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Alderman from the 11th, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I inquire the Alderman from the 21st, please?
Alderman from the 21st, will you yield for questioning to the Alderman from
Yes.
the 11th? Alderman from the 11th, please proceed.
Thank you. Alderman, I thought speed bumps were illegal in the city.
Speed bumps are not illegal. As a policy, the Streets Department does not put them up, but by this ordinance, we will have them in O'Fallon Park. So there is no ordinance outlawing speed bumps.
Are you sure?
That's been my understanding. Yeah, no, I'm absolutely sure because this question came up when the Director of Streets came in front of the Streets Department. So there is no ordinance outlawing, and in fact, speed bumps exist throughout the city in many different places. Tower Grove Park has speed bumps throughout the park. Speed bumps are in fact in Forest Park by the zoo. So speed bumps are not illegal in the city.
Okay. Thank you. It was my understanding that if I lived on in the chic and fashionable 28th Ward, for instance, and those streets are privately maintained, that they, in fact, because they pay for the maintenance of those streets, they can implement speed bumps.
Sure.
So, okay.
So, exactly. So that's a clear case of why they are not illegal. So they're not illegal, but just as a policy, the City Streets Department doesn't like them.
Thank you very much for the inquiry. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, you're welcome. Any further questions? Any further questions? Alderman from the 13th.
I'm a couple of points. First of all, these speed bumps are not in many places. They're in Tower Grove Park, which of course is operated differently than the other city parks, and there's one in Forest Park. So to say that they're in many places in the city is kind of a, I think, an exaggeration. Two, it's not the street department that said, it's not the street department's policy that there should be no speed bumps. It's really a legal issue, a legal question. And the law department, many years ago, through a succession of mayors, from Shamo to Mayor Bosley, to Mayor Harmon, and now Mayor Slay, believed that through a succession of city councilors, felt that there was a liability issue. And if a vehicle loses control after hitting a speed bump and goes in, hits a car, a child, a person, where's the liability? And the feeling is that there's potential liability for the city if you put speed bumps or other impediments in the middle of a street, of a thoroughfare. So, that's why I'm concerned. I'm concerned also because we're not really just talking about putting speed bumps in one park. What we're talking about is opening up Pandora's box. They're going to want some folks have contacted me, I'm talking about over a period of years, to have speed bumps in Carondelet Park. If they're in one city-operated park, there's going to, those of us that have parks with streets in them are going to be contacted, and it's going to be very difficult to say no. Right now we can say, I can say anyway, no, because we don't have any in any city parks except Tower Grove, and you can argue, or I can argue, and I can, with my constituents, that that's different. That is it's differently maintained, it's differently operated, and people accept that. But they're not going to, I don't think they're going to accept it if we have speed bumps in one city-operated park. Once they get into parks, people living in those adjacent streets are going to say, gee, why don't we have a speed bump? I'd like to have a speed bump here. I'd like to have a speed bump there. We're going to have a big problem, I think. So I think this bill passed, but I think it's a bad idea, but it won't be the first bad idea that we've passed down here. Thank you.
All right. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderman from the 21st, you recognize to close.
Sure.
Alderman from the 27th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think it's a great idea. I've been trying to get speed bumps for 10 years, and I was shot down several times. We were trying to put speed bumps on private streets. We did the study on it, show the cost, et cetera, et cetera. But it's a great idea to put them in the park, especially where we have this new rec center going up in O'Fallon. I think with the traffic and with the volume in this area, I think it's an advantage that the aldermen need to take up now instead of later. You're going to have people from all over the city coming over there, and he's controlling a lot of the crime in this park already. And I think, eventually, I'm hoping to branch this off, and those aldermen who do not want speed bumps in their wards, you just isolate yourself from that particular ordinance. We've done that in many pieces of legislation we passed over the years. And I'm definitely going to support my colleague on getting this done, because I've been trying to get it done for 10, 11 years. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you. Alderman from the 1st.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of the gentleman, an alderman from the 21st Ward. I think if the street department is not going to be consistent in what they do, and they allow speed bumps to go in certain areas in certain neighborhoods for whatever the reason, then I think it's disingenuous to sit up and say that we're going to deny other aldermen and communities the right to have speed bumps. So if it's good for one, then it's good for all. And I think that is the position that we should take. If speed bumps are illegal, then it would be an issue. But I don't think the gentleman's bill repealed any existing legislation, which means that speed bumps are legal. And if they are legal, then I think it's the alderman, I think it's the political leadership of that ward that should define what's good for the ward, not the street department. So if the alderman from the 21st feels that it is needed, and I also agree with him, I think that they're needed as well, then that decision should be his and that community's decision. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? Alderman from the 20th.
Mr. President, members of the board, I do recognize that my colleague from the 27th Ward for a long period of time has been seeking these and did a fantastic job looking at them. As I recall, some of the issues that were raised at that time were issues of the slope of these particular speed bumps, you know, how high and how long it would be to get to the top of that speed bump, how wide they might be. There were issues about, frankly, the faster you go, the less that you feel that speed bump. So essentially, depending on how they're constructed, one could have an issue where you would actually be encouraging faster speed through an area if one isn't careful about that. I just went through Tower Grove Park. I was looking for a particular picnic that was in there, didn't know where they were. I spent a lot of time going through the park. And to be honest with you, I stopped before each of those speed bumps that are in a private park that we fund. And when the back end of that car went over those speed bumps, it did quite a lot of jostling. So I don't know whether it's going to accomplish everything. You could put up a wall. That's essentially a speed bump that you have to go over. I understand the motivation. I also understand that we have litigation. For instance, right now there's pending in court litigation with Metro about placing shelters too close to the roadway, or at least that's the allegation. I think the Bosley firm is involved in that particular litigation. So I'm suspecting that if somebody goes over that speed bump and that causes them to lose control over their vehicle, that they're likely to say that we may have created an unsafe condition on that roadway. I'm saying that's a possibility. I think that could happen. I understand the motivation. I'm not sure, you know, our street department may want to advise the rest of us, because I think it could become very difficult, as the alderman from the 13th indicated, you know, to have a lot of different policies throughout the entire city with regard to what the conditions of the roadways are going to be. It makes sense to some degree to have it in a park, perhaps. I understand it in the private park. I'm a little concerned about, you know, how this is being done and how it's going to be viewed by the community. Folks who are having problems with speeders going down their block don't always necessarily think all of this through. They're just really sick and tired of people, you know, speeding through their street, and they want whatever's going to happen, whether you need to build a wall, whether you need to put up, you know, something that's going to burst out their tires, or you're going to do whatever. They don't care what you do to stop those speeders. But we are down here to be a deliberative board and to try to think these things through. At least from my perspective, I suspect that Alderman French has thought this through, but some of us have not had additional information since the time that the alderman from the 27th went through this. So I have some concerns about how all of this plays out for the city of St. Louis, for the safety of the people in the city.
All right, thank you. Alderman from the 17th.
Yes, Mr. President, I too have a couple concerns about this. I am very empathetic, particularly we would hate to deny the users of this park when we're going ahead and permitting it to be used, speed bumps to be used in front of the zoo. So I would like to think that we need, in the spirit of fairness, to at least consider this, or at least understand why the zoo got them. I mean, I remember several years ago driving out the zoo, and you know, out of nowhere the speed bump appeared, and I remember kind of making a mental note at the time, how did they get a speed bump? Because for years I've got calls from constituents of mine, and I called the street department, and they said, no, we worried about liability issues, and so therefore I relayed that message back to the residents and said, and of course they brought up all the exceptions, the private streets and so forth, and you know, over the years became very versed in why we don't have speed bumps. And so I I am empathetic in a sense of fairness that we ought to go ahead and at least consider it. I am strongly opposed what the alderman from the 27th, in all due respect, alderman, and from the 1st, and that we ought to just go do this and ignore what the city councilor and the street department say. I mean, we hire professionals because that's their job. I know, I don't know anything about traffic accident counts or anything else, and I can tell you the amount of time that I spent reviewing litigation resulting from going over a speed bump is 0. I suspect that very few members of this board have actually reviewed that litigation to see what our liability would be. And I would think that if we're hiring these professionals and we're ignoring them, I mean, what are we hiring them for then? And for us to just go ahead and say we don't have a liability issue or forget the liability issue, I think that's just irresponsible. And I don't care if it's your ward or not. You go ahead and you have a major claim against the city. It hurts all the residents of the city, not just the residents in your ward. So I guess my long, prolonged monologue here, I guess I would like to ask a simple question of the alderman of the 21st. When the street department appeared in front of the committee, did they appear supportive of this legislation? And then secondly, what was their reaction to anybody, or did anybody check with the city councilor's office? So out of the spirit of fairness, I am open to the idea, but I would like to at least see what our professionals had to say about it.
Sure. So to answer your question,
I have to recognize you first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Alderman from the 21st, please.
Thank you. So to answer your question, yeah, the streets department did show up at the committee, and they've maintained their policy, which is that they are not in support of speed bumps in the city. But what they were not able to say is why they've maintained them in Forest Park all this time, and if there was some real liability issue, why they even have continued to have today speed bumps in Forest Park. I would also, in response to some other comments that were made earlier, let me clarify. Number one, this ordinance, this bill does not change the rules for everywhere in the city. It does not open Pandora's box. This bill is very specific to speed bumps in one specific location in the city, specifically O'Fallon Park. If anybody else desired to have speed bumps on a city street, they would have to go through the same procedures, probably come in front of the street committee, have an ordinance. That isn't unless the streets department had a change of heart on speed bumps. Second thing is, in regard to liability, there are definitely probably some liability issues in different areas of the city. So if you put a speed bump in a narrow one-way street where parking is on both sides, there may be legitimate issues that if someone is going down that street too fast, they hit that speed bump, they lose control and they'll hit a car because the cars are so close. So universally, speed bumps may not apply, may not work everywhere. But in this specific case, in O'Fallon Park, in these locations, the streets are very, very wide. Cars seldom park along the streets. There are no sidewalks lining the streets. These are very wide streets, which is, again, why it's a safety issue when we're asking joggers to cross the street twice to use this jogging trail. And so just as visitors to Tower Grove Park and Forest Park are protected now with speed bumps, I don't see a reason why the visitors in O'Fallon Park wouldn't get that same protection.
All right. Anyone to speak for the first time on this? Alderman from the 19th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess for my need to have process and procedure be understood, carried out, and acknowledged at the appropriate time is why I'm standing. If this was determined some years ago that the city did not want to have responsibility for any actions that may occur by having speed bumps, they should have been removed from every site that they were currently located. Bill and ordinance should have been put in place to never allow them again on any city street. And if you want to even say that it is allowed for a private street, there's no such thing as a private street, because every street is a public street. You may have the privilege to identify some things that you want on your street if you pay for it, but we would still be added to any lawsuit with a private street. So again, if the city council's office or the street department or any number of aldermen who had concern over the years
That process and procedure should have been in place by now. So what I'm going to ask is, if that is so much concern, then you don't allow them anywhere and remove the ones that are there. Because I know we asked for them at this public school district. We have them in Metro High School, number high school areas. I know that some of the colleges have them in their areas too. So is this something that you allow? So today is no different from any other day that it has been allowed, and it's been within the last 10 years. We put some more out. So either we're going to get serious, go to the street department, pull everybody to the table, and make this what it should be, if that is what is the desire, if it's passed out of committee, and or we move on. But today, there is no law that says no. Today, we operate with speed bumps in various parts of the city, and today, the alderman from the 21st Ward should be allowed to make a decision and be granted that privilege in O'Fallon Park. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else for the first time? Alderman from the 27th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to clear some things up, I heard some of my colleagues mention. When I did do the research on the speed bumps on the side streets, the only legal issue that was there was you need to put some sort of information up to warn individuals before they go down the street, and that would take the liability away from the city. So we got that from the city council's office. And the only reason why it did not pass is because my colleagues at the time did not want to spend the money on their particular streets and their wards. Everything else was in its right, in place. Everything was done. So it's not about the side streets today. I just wanted to make that very clear with my colleague from the 21st Ward. If there's any legal issue, and I have the information from the city council's office, that you just need to put up a sign. I know some of my colleagues don't want signage. They don't like it's too much signage, but this is strict, signage clutter, they call it. But strictly in the park and in the O'Fallon Park, that's the only legal issue. And the other issue we got by, instead of the asphalt sort of bump, we had the metals where they're bolted in the ground. So, it didn't, over the years, when the weather becomes very hot, asphalt becomes very soft, it wouldn't wear down. The metal wouldn't wear down. And if you ever wanted to repave the street, you pop the metal up, pave your street, and put the metal back down. It's a permanent fixture. So it's a win-win for the alderman from the 21st Ward and eventually for the city.
All right,
thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. You're going to jump to Alderman from the 17th, aren't you, Alderman?
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess the reason I'm up here today talking about this is I kind of feel like a little bit of a dunce because I have over the years abided by that policy, and I felt that I could certainly come down here and try to throw my weight around with the street department, or I could go ahead and be respectful of the professionals that we've hired. In the past cases, I've either acquiesced to their request or I worked with them to come up with a reasonable compromise. I appreciate the fact that the alderwoman from the 19th mentioned schools because that's a case in point. Adams School, for those of you who are familiar, is located on Tower Grove, just south of Manchester. I got a call one day, probably 8-9 years ago, from the principal at the time, and she was concerned about the children crossing Tower Grove and that the cars weren't slowing down enough, and that there, in fact, might be some sort of hazard for the children of Adams School, the kids of our neighborhood. I'm sitting there as a cautious elected official, scratching my head and thinking, my God, if they ever had an accident over there, the principal had called me and I didn't do anything about it, and somebody would tell the newspapers that, yeah, we called the alderman and they ignored us. Well, there's stop signs already there, but in the abundance of caution, I went ahead and approached the street department about it, and I asked them about putting speed bumps in yet again, and of course I knew the answer, and it's the same answer I got many, many times before. I said, is there any exception at all for public schools? And no, there wasn't. And I said, well, what can we do other than put up the stop sign? So if you would go by that intersection today, as a compromise, we developed a small strip of cobblestone. And they said cobblestone's acceptable, but speed bumps aren't. And so I used cobblestones there, and cobblestones are actually far more expensive than speed bumps, so I wasn't real wild about doing it because I had to use the St. Louis Works program money as opposed to the street, routine street maintenance. So we've had a couple cases since then, and on rare occasions, I will go ahead, if I feel that there's a true traffic hazard, go through the expense of putting in cobblestones as opposed to go ahead and try to browbeat the professionals that I have working for us out at the street department and tell them, or come down here and do an end run around them and put a piece of legislation in that would just basically ignore them. And so that is what I've done at considerable expense. So if we suddenly do this today, and then frankly, that was the same reason when I scratched my head when I went by the zoo out there, wondering how did that happen? I would rather than go ahead and throw out the advice of our professionals, I would encourage us to go ahead and, if there are some exceptions that we're doing speed bumps somewhere else, let's identify what's going on there, how they got in, and so forth. But I don't want to go ahead and start putting speed bumps in everywhere that we get a call, and I don't want us to go ahead down here, and every time we disagree with a department head, we just go ahead and override them with a piece of legislation that ignores what we're paying them for. So that's my position on it, and if somebody can go ahead and enlighten me as to what's going on in Forest Park, and I'd appreciate that. And I'm sorry, I should put my colleague on the spot here. I'm sure she might have to do some research on that. But I just don't think we ought to just throw the policy out and start doing it willy-nilly. I do want to make sure that the residents of the 21st Ward and the people who use that park are treated fairly. But I want the residents of the 17th Ward to get treated fairly, and the last time I did that, I ended up having to spend Capital Works money to go ahead and get those cobblestones put in.
All right, thank you. Alderman from the 9th.
Thank you, Mr. President. For one thing, I don't have a park with streets, so the roads that go through it. I just want a little clarification with the Alderman from the 21st yield.
Alderman from the 21st, will you yield for question?
Yes.
Alderman from the 9th, please proceed.
Thank you. One of the questions that the Alderman from the 17th asked is about the legal part of it. And I mean, I'm one of the members on the committee, and one question that I did ask if we could get either Patty Hageman or a representative from legal down that we could ask questions. That didn't happen. You know, we didn't get a lawyer in committee to answer any questions on the liability of this, and that was one of my concerns. So, and that's what I was going to ask you. You didn't answer that when the Alderman from the 17th did. The two times that it was in committee or that we heard it, we didn't have a representative from legal that actually came up and testified. Is that correct?
I believe the second time they were invited by the chairman. I don't know why they did not show up.
Well, they didn't show up, though. I just wanted to clarify. So we didn't have the opportunity, the committee members, to ask any of the legal questions. And I appreciate the Alderman from the 27th. I don't know when he got that information, but I always think it's important to get current information. It could have been last week. It could have been a couple of years ago or whatever when this came up last time. You know, I don't have those answers. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Alderman. Any further questions? Any further questions? Alderman from the 21st, you now recognized to close.
Sure. Let me just say one thing about the liability issue. Speed bumps are at various locations throughout the city. We mentioned two public locations in Tower Grove Park and in Forest Park. But people are familiar with speed bumps on parking lots of grocery stores, in parking garages at barns, in private corporate parking garages and parking lots. And these are organizations that spend a great deal of money on legal advice, and they've deemed that it's worth the liability versus protecting the people who use their facilities. And again, I just feel that the people and the visitors of O'Fallon Park deserve the same level of protection that we allow visitors of some of our other fine parks in the city. And so with that, I just renew my motion and ask for favorable consideration from my colleagues.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 21st, seconded by the Alderman from the 27th, that we perfect Board Bill number 43. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Troop, Alderwoman Flowers, Alderman Bosley, Alderman Moore, Alderwoman Griffin, Alderwoman Triplett, Alderwoman Young, Alderman Conway, Alderman Ortman, no. Alderman Vollmer, no. Alderman Villa, no. Alderman Arnowitz. Alderman Wessels. Alderwoman Howard. I didn't hear you. Alderwoman Florida. Alderwoman Behringer. Alderman Rhodey. Alderman Kennedy. Alderwoman Davis. Alderman Schmid. Alderman French. Aye. Alderman Boyd. Aye. Alderman Vaccaro. No. Alderman Ogilvie. Aye. Alderman Cone. Aye. Alderman Williamson. Aye. Alderman Carter. Aye. Alderwoman Cruzen. President Reed.
Aye.
Alderman Conway. Alderwoman Florida. "17 aye votes, 10 no votes.
By vote, you sustain the motion, Alderman from the 21st. Perfected Board Bill number 43.
Board Bill 66, sponsored by Alderman Arnowitz, an ordinance establishing a stop sign for all eastbound and westbound traffic traveling on Loughborough at Traynor Court, causing it to be a three-way stop intersection containing an emergency clause.
Alderman from the 12th, you recognize on the perfection of Board Bill number 66.
Thank you, Mr. President, member of the boards. At this time, I'm asking for perfection for the Board Bill 66 be perfected and passed at this time.
Moved by the Alderman from the 12th, entertain second. Seconded by the Alderman from the 19th. Any discussion? Alderman from the 12th, you recognize. Any discussion?
No, sir. Again, at this time, I renew my motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Troop. Alderwoman Flowers. Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Griffin. Alderwoman Triplett. Alderwoman Young. Alderman Conway. Alderman Ortman. Alderman Vollmer. Alderman Villa. Alderman Arnowitz. Alderman Wessels. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Florida. Alderwoman Behringer. Alderman Rhodey. Alderman Kennedy. Alderwoman Davis. Alderman Schmid. Alderman French. Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaccaro. Alderman Ogilvie. Alderman Cone. Alderman Williamson. Alderman Carter. Alderwoman Cruzen. President Reed.
No.
Alderman Bosley. Alderman Conway. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Florida. Five aye votes, 22 no votes.
By vote, you fail to sustain the motion by the Alderman from the 12th. Alderman from the 23rd, you now recognize.
Have voting on the prevailing side, I'd like to reconsider the Alderman's bill.
Been moved by the Alderman from the 23rd. I'll entertain a second on that motion. Seconded by the Alderman from the 3rd. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Troop. Alderwoman Flowers. Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Griffin. Alderwoman Triplett. Alderwoman Young. Alderman Conway. Alderman Ortman. Alderman Vollmer. Alderman Villa. Alderman Arnowitz. Alderman Wessels. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Florida. Alderwoman Behringer. Alderman Rhodey. Alderman Kennedy. Alderwoman Davis. Alderman Schmid. Alderman French. Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaccaro. Alderman Ogilvie. Alderman Cone. Alderman Williamson. Alderman Carter. Alderwoman Cruzen. President Reed.
Aye.
Alderwoman Young. Alderman Conway. Alderman Vollmer. Alderwoman Florida. Alderwoman Davis. Alderman Cone. 25 aye votes, 1 no vote.
By vote, sustain the motion of the Alderman from the 23rd. Alderman from the 12th, you're now recognized. Day.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I'm going to ask that Board Bill 66 be put on the informal calendar.
Madam Clerk, please place Board Bill number 66 on the informal calendar.
So noted. That's the extent of board bills for perfection.
Alderman from the 12th, I think you actually got us this time, but congratulations on your first board bill, Alderman from the 12th. All right, we'll dispense with line items 17, 18, and 19. First reading resolutions.
Report of enrollment, board bills 34 and 35.
Oh yeah, Phyllis did them. All other business being suspended, the President shall in open session affix his signature hereto to the end that these may become law. For line item 19, first reading of resolutions.
Resolution 121, sponsored by Alderman Kennedy and Alderman Carter. The Board of Aldermen directs the Public Safety Committee to convene hearings for the purpose of examining and reviewing the present conditions of city jails in relation to the report of the ACLU and develop and design recommendations for improvements that it may deem necessary.
Alderman from 18, you recognize on first reading resolution number 121.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, I move for unanimous consent.
Hearing no objection, please proceed, Alderman.
Yes, sir. Mr. President, members of the board, Resolution 121 does exactly what the clerk said. It directs the Public Safety Committee to hold hearings in relationship to the ACLU report that came out really in 2009. We adopted a resolution at that time directing the Public Safety Committee to look at it and make recommendations back. The Public Safety Committee at that time did do so and began to convene meetings between the ACLU, the Public Safety Director, the Director or the Commissioner of Jails, and others, even union members, to discuss what could be done. That resolution was in effect to the end of that session. Those discussions were continuing and did not finish before the end of the session. So in this new session, we simply wanted to pass a second resolution continuing that, because I believe that that group is pretty close to coming up with a final recommendation back to the Board of Aldermen. With that, I make a motion to adopt Resolution 121.
Moved by the Alderman from the 18th, seconded by the Alderman from the 27th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
That's the extent of first reading of resolutions.
Second reading?
We have none.
Miscellaneous unfinished business.
We have none. St. Louis Public Schools will provide lunch for the aldermen immediately following the board meeting.
Announcements.
Wednesday, Housing Committee meeting, 10 a.m. in the Kennedy Room. Also on Wednesday, Public Safety Committee meeting, 11 a.m. in the Kennedy Room. Thursday, Neighborhood Development meeting at 2 o'clock in the Kennedy Room. That's at 2 o'clock in the Kennedy Room. Friday, full board meeting, 10 a.m. in the chambers. That's the extent of my announcements.
Any further announcements? Alderman from the 22nd.
Mr. President, members of the board, 26 years ago today, a baby boy was born that looked just a little bit better than me. His name is Jeffrey Boyd Jr., and I want to wish him a happy birthday.
Oh, tell him happy birthday, Jeffrey Boyd Jr. Alderman from the 27th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was going to say something politely to the alderman from the Double Deuce Ward, but I'll pass it. 27th Ward meeting, the 18th June, 10 a.m. at Bishop Willie Ellis Center on Goodfellow, 5939 Goodfellow. Again, that's the 18th. That's the last meeting for the summer. We will pick it up again in September, so make sure you attend. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alderman from the 26th.
So many things outside.
Members of the board, I would like to announce as my special guest today, Anthony Shahi of the Tahi Youth Group. Thank you.
Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderman from the 25th.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I also just want to take a moment to wish a happy Father's Day to one of our colleagues. It's his first Father's Day, our colleague from the 21st Ward, Alderman Antonio French, and also a happy Father's Day to all of the fathers out there in the city of St. Louis.
All right, thank you. Alderman from the 19th, I don't know what you're going to announce, but hopefully you have some information on the up-and-coming boxing match also. Alderman from the 19th.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I'm glad you reminded me because I had other things on my mind this morning. First, I wanted to say happy birthday to Robbie Montgomery. She's another Gemini in the community, and she and I share a lot of Gemini traits. And so I wanted to say happy birthday to her. She's having her birthday party tonight. Also, I wanted to recognize that we do have the superintendent from St. Louis Public Schools here with us today, and he's going to be in room 108 to share some information with us that I think is very important to everyone. But yes, Devin Alexander is having another fight. It's June 25th, if I remember right. And it's at the Family Arena in St. Charles, and he's fighting that knockout crazy man. So we got to send prayers up for him, and we got to be there to support him. So thank you for reminding me.
All right, thank you, Alderman. Alderman from the 18th.
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, starting today at 5 p.m. in Fountain Park and continuing all the way through Sunday, we will have our Juneteenth celebration. In 1865, April 8 of 1865, when the Civil War ended and the news got around that people who were held in bondage in this country were freed, spontaneous celebrations broke out. The word of that freedom came about in various places at different times. And so many individuals did not hear about the ending of the Civil War until June of 1865. And therefore, these celebrations have been coined Juneteenth, the various teen days in June that people heard about the celebration. So there is a celebration beginning today at 5 p.m. in Fountain Park, celebrating Juneteenth. There'll be a number of vendors and special guests and performances out there today, tomorrow, and Sunday. There will be Juneteenth activities throughout the city, including one in the 4th Ward and another in Buda Park. But we do invite everyone out to attend it. They are grand celebrations, and it is an opportunity for the entire city to enjoy each other's company.
All right, thank you. Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderman from 13th, you're recognized on the motion to excuse.
Thank you, Mr. President. All aldermen are present.
All right. You're recognized on the motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adjourn the meeting until Friday, 10 a.m., June 24th.
Moved by the Alderman from 13th, seconded by the Alderman from 27th. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned.